Welcome back, everyone, to my live art streams of Kalidasia characters here on Twitch.tv. I am Jason, the creator of the Kalidasia universe, Legends of Kalidasia, which is a space combat miniatures game, and then also Kalidasia Fleet Commander, which is a board game of planetary siege set in the Kalidasia universe. And we're just about ready to continue on with what we've been working on previously, which is a Krylan character from an upcoming short story that's features in the Albion campaign, which is what Kalidasia Fleet Commander is set in. And I'm going to start working on his armored suit, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about that here in just a minute. But what I'm using in front of me here, this is the GIMP version 2.8.6. And I'm on a Microsoft Surface Pro 2nd generation. And that's what I'm doing, using as tools. If you have any questions as we go along here, feel free to ask away. Ask away about what I'm doing, about Kalidasia, what it's like to make a tabletop game, or, hey, if you just want to promote your YouTube videos like Ryan here and his Tales of Valhalla stuff in the chat room, sure, why not go ahead and do that, or just ask me whatever you feel like. So, over here on the left-hand side is kind of my reference image I've been using for the Krylan. This is the Krylan in full Phoenix combat armor. So the main character I'm drawing here, Alendar, is not in that full suit, but he's got still a bit of an armored vest thing going on, as you can kind of see in the reference image. So to bring up to speed where I've been the past 3 streams, this is the 4th one, I left off with, let's see, I'll go through this process really quickly here. First of all, I had a bit of a sketch. You can see the red outline I just dropped in here to kind of approximate the shape of his armor. Then I went and I made what I called a face map of the vest. Where is that in the layers here? That's a good question. There it is. It's down in the bottom, that's why I can't see it. Vest face mask. And pretty much what this multicolor thing here is identifying all the different angled faces that compose the vest. I'm going to be using this later when I start drawing out where the edges are and do some basic lighting effects. But these are the multicolors here just represent like the different faces of the vest. And in a random mathematical thing, I talked a little bit about this 4-color stuff. There's actually a mathematical proof called the 4-color theorem. That's what I was referencing last episode. Don't worry about it, big deal. It's a fun little math thing if you want to read about it. Alright, so we've got all the faces mapped out. And I'm going to turn that and the sketch off. And that's going to leave us here with my vest base color layer, which right now is just basic gray. I'm going to go ahead and start applying a little bit different color to it. I'm going to give it a little bit of a bluish tint. So I'm going to lock the transparency up here in right above the layers dialog, which is going to prevent me from adding extra color onto the layer. So unless a layer already has basically a pixel color assigned to it, I can't change it. Just going to go a very light blue because that would look kind of cool. Whoops, wrong thing I changed. I changed the transparency of the layer. I want to change the transparency or the opacity of the tool. There we go. Just a little bit of bluish color to it. That's going to be used later when I start chipping away at the paint. But for right now, let's add some more texture to it. So for the brush, I'm going to use one of the acrylic brushes. That's way too big. And we're really going to zoom in here and just take, oh, I don't know. Let's do a little bit of a different shade of blue, not by a lot. Let's turn our opacity back up so you can see what's going on. That's too much. Too much opacity. And also going to apply some jitter, which jitter basically makes the cursor jump around as you drag it along. And all you're going to get here is a very faint, just a very weird blue thing going on. With that nice suspenseful music going on in the background. And this is literally just to break up the color a little bit and just a little bit of variety to the suit. Because nothing in reality is actually a nice flat color. Check out this link to some really good Christmas music if it works. I will have to check that out, Ryan. I thought you were promoting your Tales of Valhalla stuff. No, you're promoting Christmas music. That works too. But if you actually use basically non-royalty-free music on a Twitch.tv stream, I believe they will basically mute the stream when it goes to video on demand, which I do want the audio because I do put these on my YouTube channel, and I'll probably turn them into speed paints and stuff later. Alright. That's some just good basic texture. Maybe I want to, let's kind of smooth it out a little bit. So I'm using the smudge tool here. Just going to kind of smooth it out a little bit. And it's going to kind of blend. One of the ways to blend colors together in the GIMP is using the smudge tool as I'm doing here. And it just makes it a little bit less distinct. You know, it's an art style thing, depending how you want to go about it. It's one of the tools you can use. I think once I start getting some faces down, I'll go back and apply some a little more rigid textures. Alright, so we got some very loose textures going on there, that's good. Now it's time to start working with this vest face mask that I brought out last time. Actually, Ryan, I bought the one full cinema pack that has all the stuff in it, and I also got the theatrical trailer pack, which I didn't put in here because it's all like your theatrical trailer music. So yeah, I got his cinnamon crunch, cinema toast, yeah, whatever it's called, yeah, the whole darn thing. And we're talking about the stock music I have running in the background for those who are just joining in. All right, so remember last time I was talking about how your brain perceives texture and basically surfaces. Areas that are angled, the faces that are angled towards the light are going to be a little bit brighter, and your brain's going to know this, kind of map that out in the 3D space on a 2D image. So in our particular artwork, this giant big squiggly mess up in the corner here is basically the source of the light. So any of the faces that are facing that source of the light are going to be a little bit brighter. Areas that are facing away from that source of the light are going to be a little bit darker. And depending on just how closely they're angled to that light, is going to change just how bright or dark they are. So what I'm going to do, I am going to create a new layer here right above the vest base color. Let's call it just vest lighting. I'm going to fill it with a gray value of 50. This is going to be one of those hard light layers I like to use to add both light and shadow pretty easily to the artwork. You see the little texture standing out. Okay, so change the layer mode up here to hard light. And you can see everything's going to go away, because right now when you have a gray value of 50 in a hard light layer, it's not going to affect anything. As you do brighter than that, it's going to be basically brighter. It's going to make the layer below it brighter. If you go below 50, it's going to make the layer below it darker. You're going to see that start showing up here in a minute. Alright, so let's go to our vest face mask here. These two faces up here at the top are going to be the ones that are going to be the brightest. So I'm going to select that region on the vest face mask layer. And then I'm going to go back to the vest lighting layer. And we're going to take a color of, I don't know, let's try 70. Hide our vest mask layer. Now drawing on the vest lighting layer, you're going to see that face is currently selected on your color. Let's just take the hardness 100 brush, so no fading. Hello, Donbo Skull held? I don't know, I did my best there, sorry. Hello. I'm here doing some artwork for my tabletop game, Legends of Kalidasia. I'm doing a tutorial on how to do kind of sharp-faced armor. And what I've done is I just selected one of the armor panels using a mask I'll bring up here in a minute. And now I'm going to kind of make that armor panel a little bit lighter because it's kind of facing towards the source light of the image, which is in the upper right-hand corner of the image. That's probably a little too bright. So I'm going to go back down. We'll go down. We'll probably work with 61 will be our brightest angle. There we go. It's a little bit brighter. Let's bring up our vest face mask again. And what I'm using here is the magic wand tool, which lets me kind of select a region. I'm selecting the blue region here, which is the next armor panel. And this one here is probably tilted a little bit more towards the sunlight. So go back to my vest lighting layer, which is the hard light layer. And let's do a gray value of about 63. So it's a little bit brighter than the last one. And using our paintbrush tool, let's paint it in. We're going to have to actually go back and fix the edges a little bit, because you can see there's a little bit of a gap there. Let's do this. Select grow by 1 pixel, and now let me try it. Select none. We just do that too. Okay. I'll explain what I did there in just a minute when I select another panel. Alright. So this is really going by face until you kind of get the effect you want. Alright, so. And also I should consider I'm only taking into account for the source lighting. Obviously there's going to be a head here, it's going to affect shadows, but that kind of lighting I'm going to deal with later. This is literally as if the head wasn't there casting shadows. Next up, I'm going to select this blue armor panel right here on the vest mask layer. I'm going to go select grow 1 pixel. That's literally going to increase the borders of that selection by 1 pixel in all directions, which will get rid of that kind of 1 pixel messiness that you saw just a minute ago when I tried to highlight it. Let's hide our vest mask layer, back to the lighting, and we want to go, well, we'll do like a 56, 57 brightness. And just so you know, later on, you will be able to go back and kind of adjust the values of these brightness and darkness as you keep painting in case you don't like how it's going. So right now we're just kind of eyeballing the various brightness and how brightness and darkness of things. We can fix that later on if it ends up kind of being a disaster. And even though I'm only adjusting things by like 1 pixel, that's often gonna one or two values. That's off 1 or 2 points of value. Let me say that right. 1 or 2 points of value. That's actually going to often look quite distinct when you see them next to each other because of how your brain perceives color. And there is a really sharp edge here. We'll clean that up too later. But right now, this is like, step 1 of 4 or 5 for this entire process. Oh, whoops. And if nothing happens like that there, obviously I still have the vest face mask selected. I want to go make sure I'm on the vest lighting layer. And there we go. So let's actually keep this purple one, this small purple one the same. That's kind of like perpendicular to the ground. And then I'm going to take this big purple one. We can keep that be the same as well. That's also relatively perpendicular. Now this blue one down here, this one's going to be kind of dark. So let's select the big blue face panel right here. Same dealy, select grow, 1 pixel, and let's drop down to the lighting layer, and I'm actually going to choose about a value of 47. Now this is going to start making it darker. That's good, I like it, I like it. Select none, and then this green section right here, that is going to be even darker because that's going to be kind of caving in a little bit into his chest. It's kind of like this whole region is kind of sticking out a little bit, as if it's a bit of a metal chest plate. That's kind of what it is, isn't it? All right, 44. And now chances are your brain's going to probably start to perceive this in a bit of a 3D space as I start coloring these various, or as I start applying these tints or value changes, whatever you want to call it, to these various shapes. So this one here is going to be even a little bit more darker. We'll do 42. Once again, wrong layer. This one here, we're going to go with a big green middle piece. Select grow 1 pixel. So I keep growing by 1 pixel to get rid of empty lines in between the armor panels. And I'm going to make this one just a little bit brighter because it's slightly facing upwards. So we'll do a brightness of 52. And then finally, let's select the yellow guy up here. Select grow 1 pixel. And this guy's really facing upwards, so we'll probably do like a 55 value. So there you go. You can kind of start to get the idea of what the 3D shape kind of looks like. This is where you gotta find out if your shape is actually working correctly, or if it's like something doesn't seem quite right. And I think what I'm running into, because I'm not seeing a nice clean 3D shape down here, I'm going to have to add some more lighting at some point to fix that a little bit. It doesn't look quite right to me. And probably what's going to happen is, probably what I'm going to do is, like, for example, this plate right here, which is this big purple one, is not truly perpendicular, like flat. It's flat, but we're going to add a bit of a gradient to it to imply that it's actually more at a weird angle. So why don't I actually go ahead and do that and see how that looks. Oops. And this was 0, right? So we can take our, let's start with a 48 gradient. And we're going to use the gradient tool. It's this little icon here that kind of looks like it's a bit of a square with a shade to it. And I'm going to do a foreground to background. And for the background color, I want to choose something that's a little bit less than, what color is that? So that's 52. Okay. So for the foreground color, we're going to be 48. The background color, let's set it to be 51. Alright, so it's not a big change, but you probably should see something just given the context of how this thing is. And make sure I do this right. So darker is down here. I have a feeling I'm in the wrong layer. No, I'm on the right layer. Yeah, it's a little bit of gradient to it. I'm gonna also have to add some more kind of this area specific shading down here, but I'll get to that a little bit later. But all in all, it turned out not too bad. I kind of like what I'm going with here. Like I said, the shape's a little off, but I'm gonna try to fix that in a bit. So to make life easier, not really make life easier. So pretty much I'm just going to do the exact same thing on the left-hand side of the screen here as I did on the right-hand side. But now that I know what all the values are, I'm going to just basically select purple, hide the layer, go back to my vest lighting layer, using the eyedropper tool, which is going to let me select another color from another part of the artwork. I can click on that. I can get the color I used over there and just apply the same one in the matching spot. Wrong color. Eyedropper tool. There we are. Now go back and do it. That's right. So if you have any questions about what I'm doing here, feel free to ask away, or really just, you can ask anything about tabletop wargaming. Or if you want to know kind of what's involved, you want to create your own game, I'm more than willing to answer any questions about that as well. In fact, I actually created an entire YouTube series about how I created the game Kalidasia Fleet Commander from start to finish. I selected the wrong thing again, didn't I? That's a problem when you get in these kind of routines where it's like you got to do the same thing over and over again 15 times. You got to be careful not to really screw yourself up, because it's very easy to do. Like, use the eraser tool. Hey. Or do that. So it's select vest mask layer, hide it, go here, choose a color from the matching section, go back and paint. Alright. Show the mask layer, select it, use the magic wand tool, select the region, select grow by 1 pixel, hide it, go back to the lighting layer, select the color on the opposite side, go back and paint. And we just repeat that process again and again and again. Alright, there we go. So we got the basic layout of the shapes for this particular section of his armor. Let's clean up some of these really sharp, very pixelated edges. Remember the smudge tool? Here's where we're going to use that. Let's go really small. Let's do a 3 pixel size in the smudge tool. Make sure you have the vest lighting layer selected. And I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that layer and drag it all the way down just in case I really screw something up. It's not a bad idea in the GIMP if you're worried about possibly screwing up a layer, so you can do something really crazy with it. Copy it, shove it down to the bottom of your artwork, and it's there if you need to go back and get to it later. And just using the smudge tool, I'm literally just drawing along the lines between the armor panels, and just that action alone will make it a lot less pixelated. And if you need to go along it, 2 or 3 times if you need to, or maybe just add a little bit of a wiggle as you move your mouse cursor or stylus, whatever you're drawing with, along, and that'll help kind of smooth it out just a bit also. Alright, so let's give your armor a little bit better look once you've got them all done. Now I'm going to add some face-specific texture. So I'm going to add a little bit of texturing to a certain face, and then can kind of break that texturing along the various edges. So it gives you a little bit more distinctive shaped, or what do I want to say? A little bit more of a distinctive break to the various pieces of your armor. So I'm going back down to the base color layer. Well, in a moment. Actually, I'm actually going to go select the vest face mask, and I'm going to, where do I want to do this? Let's put a little bit of texture here along his, what is this shoulder pad, which would be his left shoulder pad, what I'm circling right now. So on the select the vest face mask layer, use your magic tool. Even though that particular layer is currently invisible, you can still select based upon it. So there you go, I clicked right in that area and I selected that face. And going back to the base color layer, I'm going to take a little bit of a kind of a grayish blue color, take the airbrush, choose one of the acrylic colors. We'll do about a size 10, add just a tiny bit of jitter, and let's crank up our opacity a bit here. And I'm just adding a little bit of of texture around the edges. Because what that's going to do here is a couple things. First of all, I'm kind of drawing it in the angle that the armor panel is to give a little bit more of an illusion of a shape to it. But then let's go back to our mask layer. We're going to select the armor panel next to it. Go back to base color, kind of do the same thing. We do need to go select, grow 1 pixel, just to make sure we don't have those weird empty lines there. And it's just a way to add more texture to the suit. It's kind of builds up along the edge of the particular armor panel. In a lot of ways, this is kind of like the techniques you would use to paint a tabletop miniature figure, where you often apply details and highlights and things to the edge of armor panels. It's literally the same line of thinking. And the reality is you don't need to go through and select every layer, as long as you can be kind of careful with, select each of the panels with the select tool. As long as you can kind of be a little bit careful with how you control your brush strokes, you just kind of follow along those lines without worrying too much about going over them, as long as you're careful. It also helps that the actual shading for the those lines is on a different layer than the base color. It's that whole lighting layer I've been working with for a while. So you really can't ruin that particular aspect of your artwork right now by doing this, because the base color layer doesn't actually convey what's bright and what's dark based on how the light is currently facing. The light is shining, reflecting, whatever you want to say, reflecting blah blah blah. How the light is reflecting off the particular armor panels. So I'm just adding a little bit of this gunk to the various edges of pretty much most of the armor panels, just to get a little bit more of a distinction along those edges. Because of course it's the edges that are going to take the most brutal effects from weathering and any kind of dirt or grime or whatever kind of wear and tear is going to happen is going to first occur along the various edges. Just because of the nature of how, I guess, physics works? Sure. And the jitter gives it a little bit of like the random appearance to make it look a little bit more chaotic, like you'd expect weathering and damage and wear to be. And by using that acrylic brush, it also adds to the kind of chaotic, random nature of the effect, and therefore makes it look a little bit more on the realistic side than a nice, clean, circular brush would. Now we get to zoom out and hopefully didn't ruin something. No, I think that looks pretty good. I like it. I like that effect. I was like, oh no. You always kind of get that bit of worry when you zoom out. You're like, oh no, did something terrible happen that I screwed up by doing all this? No, it actually looks really cool. Okay. Next, I'm going to add the appearance of chipped metal. So we're going to assume this is some sort of metal or some sort of composite material. I really have no idea what it is. I didn't think that far ahead yet in terms of the lore for the details of how the equipment works. But we're going to pretend like it's metal in this case. So we're going to do a little bit of a chipped metal effect where the paint is scraped off. And like I said before, this often is going to occur along the particular edges. So this time, let's turn off the jitter for right now. We want to choose a kind of a bright gray color, because metal, when it's hit with light, is pretty bright. And the direct sunlight is where you get that bright, pure white that's painful to look at. So let's see, choose an edge. We're going to go here. I'm going to start using the airbrush tool. Try to give it as much of a random-like appearance as you can. That is too bright. So let me back up and take that back. We're going to go down to a gray of a value of around 61, and we'll try it again. Yeah, okay, so we're getting there. You're going to start getting this effect. We're going to do it in a few more places. Put a spot there. We'll put a spot down along here. We'll put one over here in this corner. Should move my camera back a little bit. You're getting a nice big shot of my face just buried in my computer right now, aren't you? And let's do 2 more spots. And then I'll go back into the next phase of this process. Do one up here along his shoulder. And let's hide one down here in the corner. Okay, now what we're going to do is add a little bit of texture to the actual metal. Let's choose a different gray shade, maybe a little bit brighter. We'll do 67. I'm going to decrease the brush size to about 4, and I'm really going to go over these areas just really quickly, just enough to eliminate the fact that it looks like a nice smooth gray color. It's going to be very subtle changes, but you know what? Most of the artwork when you do this kind of stuff is all about lots of small, subtle changes. Alright, cool. The last part to the chip metal effect is to actually add a little bit of depth to it, to make it look like there's actually a very tiny, fine amount of material that's actually chipped off of the suit. And what this comes down to is trying to figure out, is the boundary of the chip section facing towards the light or facing away from the light, and then either applying a bit of a brighter highlight or a bit of a darker shadow than the surrounding colors. So in this case, we want to go back to our vest lighting color. Now we have a bit of a U shape going on here. This region here, and this line up here, those are all facing towards the light. So we're going to take our eyedropper tool and select this armor panel to know what color it is. And I'm going to go and amp it up by about just 3, we'll do by 2, we'll do 3 value increase. We're going to take our acrylic brush here, and I'm actually going to go ahead and use the paintbrush, not the airbrush tool. This will be interesting what happens. And I'm drawing these lines to be just a little bit brighter. So you're getting just a little bit of an effect that there's a bright edge right here, as if it's really pointed towards the light. It's a very small effect. That's all right. You want it to be a relatively small effect. And I guess this line here too would also be definitely towards the light. Okay, so that's good. Maybe we can even make it smaller. Let's do a little 2 pixel thing. Go back and forth a few times here. And then this particular line along here is actually going to be facing away from the lights. It's going to be a little bit darker. Select our armor panel color, drop it down by about 3 pixels. Use the paintbrush. It's about 2 pixels, and there we go. And you get a very subtle, maybe a little too much, but you zoom out here, you're going to see that it does give it a little bit of depth perception. There's a chunk of something missing. And we're going to do this process again for these other armor pieces. I'm actually going to go down and do a 1 pixel line this time. So let's select our color. These are away from it, so let's do a little bit darker. Paintbrush. Okay, you really can't see much doing that, so let's do it back to 2 pixel. Yeah, so 1 pixel to acrylic brushes doesn't really do much. So make it a little bit darker, and there you go. Instantaneous tiny bit of depth perception, just like that. Down here, we'll figure out the local color is. We have some facing towards the light, some away from it. 3 pixels darker for the areas that are away from the light. Just like that. Then let's go up 6 pixels, not 6 pixels, 6 value, and that's for the areas that are towards the light. And let's just keep doing this process. Over here, we're mostly towards the light. And there we go. Now we're starting to get something that actually looks like a suit of kind of staggered, multi-plated, sci-fi style armor. The last thing I want to fix up is, oops, bumped my microphone, that's gonna suck. Sorry guys. The last thing I want to fix up is right here, this little chest indentation area because it's too flat right now. So I'm going to add a bit more shading just to this one little area so that it looks a little bit more kind of more realistic than just a flat thing, a flat shape. So on the face mask layer, select it. Select, grow, 1 pixel, get a little bit larger. We're going down to the vest lighting picture, and what I'm going to do is add a little bit of shadow to the right hand side of it. So what color did we have here before? We had 42. So we're going to drop it down to about 38, and I'm going to use a hardness 50 brush, and it's going to be kind of not too big. I'm going to go for around a 30 or so size pixel brush. And what I'm going to do is trace along, so let's do the hardness 25 brush. And I'm going to trace along the edge, the right edge of this shape. And it's going to give it a little bit of a darker appearance there. I'm going to do the same kind of thing along the top. So now it's given a little bit more of depth perception to it. And what I'm going to do now is go back and select our color, whatever the base color this was. And now this area over here, the left edge of this particular shape, is kind of facing a little bit closer to the light. So we're going to make that a little bit brighter and do the same thing. Where I take my paintbrush, hardness 25, about 37 size 37, and just trace along the right hand side like that. Use the blend tool a little bit to kind of merge where these two things meet. I think I'm actually going to go back over here, select the dark color that I painted with, start making it even a little bit darker, take the paintbrush, go smaller, we'll do like a 20 pixel brush, and really just go in this corner here, make it even more darker, smudgy tool, just blend it out just a little bit, and see if that makes it look better. I still don't quite like it, to be honest with you. It still doesn't seem quite right to me. But it's like the one thing kind of sticking out, sore thumb, compared to the rest of the armor suit. Alright, let me try one more thing. Vest face mask. Select that region again. Select grow, 1 pixel. Let's go back to our vest lighting. Smudgy. It's a smudgy tool. Alright, I want to go through and let's undo. Take a small smudge tool, about 3 pixels, and we're going to blur the lines here a little bit, make them a little bit more, make them not more, less pixelated. I don't know. I really don't know what I'm going to do about it. Sure, we'll keep it like that for now. Still, my mind doesn't seem quite right. I think what the problem is are the corners of it here, in the right and left hand corners, because it doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense visually. It just kind of like stops, right? Okay, let's try this. Okay, best face mask layer. Select this little guy. Select, grow, 1 pixel. I think what I'm gonna do, because you can't actually see this face right here, it's pretty much hidden. because there would be a little face that you can't see right here. And that really should be kind of probably a little bit brighter. So let's take this color. Whoopsie daisy. Best lighting layer. Select that. Do about a 20 pixel brush and go along the bottom here. No, I don't like that. Whoopsie daisy. At this point, I'm just kind of screwing around here trying to figure out what's the best approach to fix this issue. I don't know. I'm honestly just going to ignore it for now, and maybe I'll come back and fix it later if it's really bothering me, because it's, I don't know why it's bothering me. I think it's something about the shape and the lighting is making my brain think that doesn't fit there. I'm doing something wrong with this part, and it's kind of annoying me. Alright, well, I'm just going to let it go. I can come back to it later if it still bothers me. But as I add more to the picture, maybe I might have just kind of learned to ignore it or learn to accept it, whatever it may be. So with that, I'm going to take a quick little 5-minute break here. I'll be back in just a few minutes. And we'll keep working on this with some of the side pieces down here and possibly getting on to his bracer and his feet plates. But like I said, I'll be back in just a few minutes. I want to just get up and take a quick little break. Alright, welcome back. Let me make sure everything's still running right. My tablet that I monitor my live stream on just broke. So as long as that's working fine, I'll get back to starting the other pieces of his armor. Oh, that's loud. That ad was loud. Alright, looks like I'm back on. Okay, cool. Let's continue working on here. Thanks, Ryan. So carrying on. A few things first. I actually got to do a little bit of cleanup as I start working on the kind of the side abdominal oblique plates here. Because if you notice, his body kind of does this weird thing where it goes off and disappears. Yeah. Alright, suit color. We're going to take the eraser. Let's get a 75 hardness brush. Go up. Okay, yeah, we're good. And just very carefully kind of erase it down so that it matches the position and shape of the armor plate. Alright, that's good. Now I need to get rid of the excess texture there. So, same thing, go into the texture layer, and let's just erase it. That looks good. Okay, so that's taken care of. And in case it's the first time watching this thing, this little blob right here on the right-hand side of the oblique, that would be his arm. When you see the sketch, you'll see why it's there. That's why there's this weird missing chunk taken out of the armor piece. Alright. Let's go back to vest base color. We're going to take some of that weird dark blue stuff we were working, dark blue purplish we were working with earlier. And same kind of process we did about an hour ago. With take a little bit of jitter. And I'm just kind of adding a little bit of dirty texture to these pieces. A couple shades of blue, and then I'll smudge them together. These oblique pieces are a little bit simpler in terms of their armor patterns. They don't have quite as many angled shapes and things going on as the top section does. They just have basically two levels to them. So to do that, we can go to our vest lighting layer. And we know, just like how we did with the metal chip pieces, we can just highlight a little bit and add a little bit of shadows to give the illusion that there's some depth, change of depth there. So, because both essentially the top and kind of bottom pieces of these oblique pieces are essentially facing the same angle. They don't have a distinctive color in terms of how the light's hitting them. So let's go a little bit brighter, we'll do a value of 54. Let's take the we'll take the hardness 75 brush. We can get away really small. Let's do a 5, nothing too big. Let's do a 4 pixel brush and go zoop. And that's a real sound effect. Zoop. Do another one down here. Zoop. Zoop. And on this side, we're going to do something similar with a brighter color brush. Go zoop. And seriously, sound effects are not required. It just makes things a little more exciting. You should see when I play tabletop games. Whew. Okay. Let's go down to a little bit darker color on 46, and we're going to complete this piece right down here. There we go. And same thing over here now, because this particular facing is away from the light, it's going to be a little bit darker. So let's just do that. And not quite what I like. That'll work. And then that'll work. And just like that, we've created a little bit of illusion of 3D depth. Nothing fancy. Very simple kind of stuff. And let's go back to our base color layer. We're going to go with some sort of a bluish texture, kind of like what we did before. A bluish gray texture. Spray brush. Let's do acrylic 2 this time. Probably around size 16. And we can just add that kind of little grimy corner texture. Oh, let's take jitter off. just to add even more of an effect, like there's more, you know, of a divide between the two layers. And then if you wanted to, you certainly could go ahead and add some chip metal if you want that look here. If not, don't worry about it. It's all up to you. I'm not going to because it takes a while. And yeah, I'm ready to move on to the next part, to be honest with you. This one character has been a lot of work for literally one picture out of like 4 or 5 for a short story that I'm working on. So I really hope this thing turns out looking awesome. If it doesn't, I'm going to be pretty annoyed. Alright. So we have a few more armor pieces on this guy to work with. We have his bracer, which is his shield. So let's start there. I am going to drag the sketch 2 layer below vest base color and turn it on. So now you can kind of get an idea of what I'm looking at for his shield generator here. So vest base color, let's just choose a bluish color like with the rest of it. And then using the hardness 100 brush, I'm going to just kind of color in the shape as I see it. But make sure I turn off lock transparency. Otherwise, you won't be able to draw any new color on the layer. Running into a bit of a problem here. I'm going to actually have to select the color I just drew because I'm running into a problem in that it is being this bracer is being drawn below the arm, which obviously if it's a bracer is sitting on top of the arm. So let's go select it, edit, cut. Let's create a new layer. So let's drag the vest. Let's keep that. Where would it be? Left arm texture. We'll go above here. Let's call it bracer base color, and this is going above the left arm texture, and let's paste it down. There we go. Now it's being drawn over the arm, which is what we want it to be. Oh, that's my phone going off. Really? Alright, sorry about that, guys. I'm back. Everything looks to be working. Wow, that's loud. I need to control the volume of that. That promo volume is absolutely loud. Wow. Okay. Yeah, okay, sorry about that. That promo volume was really loud. I'll have to try to fix that next time around. So, alright, here we go. So where was I? I was drawing the bracer arm. So I'm going to run probably until about 6:30 because of that little interruption. It was only at about 6:15 or so, but I'll drag it out a little bit longer. Alright, that'll work pretty good. That's about the basic shape I'd like to have. I keep tweaking it. Like, no, it's no good. Good, no good. Okay. Close enough. That'll look pretty good in the whole big scheme of things. Alright, we're going to create a new layer. This is going to be bracer shade. Or bracer, I don't know, lighting. We'll call it bracer lighting. this is going to be a hard light layer as well, and we're going to fill it with, you know, the flat 100 and or no, flat 50 pixel, the flat 50 value gray color that way I always use. So this thing's going to have a few different things going on with it. It's going to have a few sharp edges, and then so it's basically going to be a flat piece that goes right along the middle here, and then the edges are going to kind of curl up a little bit. So let's get that flat piece in here first. And I'm just using the lasso tool to select a relatively flat region. So that looks about right for what's going to be the main kind of shield electronics that he's got. Because basically what this bracer is, this is his shield he has, a portable shield. It's kind of like what the Jackals have in Halo. That's kind of one of the inspirations of it. And it's going to be slightly, it's more or less neutral. But just to make it a little bit different, I will make it slightly darker. So he's almost, well, slightly brighter. He's tilting it up a little bit. So let's take our paintbrush, a hardness 100 brush, and we are painting the bracer lighting layer. This is basically similar to what we did with the whole vest thing. And it's going to make it just a little bit brighter. It's also going to give us something to select by. And I can actually clean the color up down there. Now I got some more shape going to it. But I'll fix it in a minute. Okay, so obviously there's a little bit of a wall, a little bit of a raised piece right along this bright area here that'd be really bright because that's going to be facing even closer to the light. So what you can do now on the bracer lighting layer, you got to change the threshold literally down to 0. And you're going to select this new highlight area you just did there. Let's do select invert. So now I've got everything but that highlight area selected. I'm going to take the paintbrush, we're going to make it a hardness 50 brush, really small, like 7 pixels, and we're going to make this a value of probably about 59. And we're just going to trace right along that boundary line there as best we can. And that'll give the illusion that there's a bright wall facing upwards and give a little bit of elevation effect to this bracer. Now inversely something, let's take a darker color on 44 and do the same thing but along the bottom of the bracer because there's going to be a little bit of a shadow down there, right? This is like a 3D object. So that should give this bracer a bit of a 3D appearance standing out. And I'm going to actually now clean up my bracer base color a little bit. It's not quite even. Here's what I'm going to do. This is what I should have done to begin with. Select none. Since it's relatively flat, straight at the camera, let's do that. We're selecting the top half of the bracer base color. Do an edit copy. And then I'm going to do select invert. We're going to get rid of the rest of the bracer. Now let's do edit paste. Oh yeah, I don't want to do that. Undo paste, edit, undo cut, edit, undo invert selection. Okay, copy this selection. Now do select invert. Delete button in the not cut because we want to preserve this top area that I'm working with here. Now we do edit paste. Over there for some apparent reason. Let's drag it over. layer, transform, flip vertically. And we need to match it up to the bottom piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it such that the two corners here in the middle meet. So you can see basically that the right here where the two halves are meeting, and I'm going to use the rotate tool, which is the two rectangles with the arrows pointing around it. I'm going to rotate this layer, but what I'm going to do is this little circle thing here indicates the center of rotation. I'm going to drag that to the point where those two layers meet. This is going to basically make the two pieces kind of hinge at that point. And I'm basically going to just snap them shut. And I'm going to say basically a lot because that's what I do. Rotate. There we go. Select none. Or no, layer, anchor layer. And I can then just take the smudge tool and kind of fill in this little bit of missing piece right here. Or just paint over it, which is actually the better way to do it. Alright, there we go. So now we got equal size bracer. And what I'm going to do is give the illusion that these top and bottom pieces are pretty much kind of curving around his arm. We're going to do that with light and shadow. So up here in the top part, as it curves around his arm, it's going to get a little bit brighter. Not by a lot, but a little bit. And the bottom is going to get a little bit darker. And I lied. I'm going to tweak this some more. Okay, that's better. Not really, but it'll work. Okay. So, here's what we're going to do. Yeah, that'll work. So we want to select everything but pretty much the regions we had elevated earlier. So that would be the extra elevated piece as well as the walls that make up that elevated piece. And I'm going to take the paintbrush. We're going to select a gray color. That's, we'll do a 67 value. And make it a nice big paintbrush with maybe a hardness of 50. And I'm going to trace along the top edge of this bracer. And if this works, it'll look pretty cool. Not doing that. Make sure you're on the actual... Oh, there's the bracing lighting layer. Okay, too bright. Let's make it 60. And there we go. Gives that the top edge of the bracer a little bit of a highlight. Now let's change the value down to 40. And we're going to do the same kind of a thing down here along the bottom of the bracer. And it's going to make it look like it's kind of going into the shadows. So there we go, got a little bit of shading going on with that bracer, and I'm going to add some drawing and some details to it here, just to give it the illusion that it's actually, not illusion, but to give the appearance that it is some sort of weird shielding thing going on. But before I do that, let's do our weird bluish gray texture things we like to do. Let's do acrylic 2. Do about a 13 size brush. I'm going to go along the top here, actually. And just kind of go along our colors here, make a look at the color. The top edge of the armor is kind of, you know, I don't know, getting chipped away, dissolved away, whatever. Same thing along here. And once again, this just kind of sells the illusion more that there's actually multi-faces going on. There probably should be a dark face there, shouldn't there? Yeah, I should do that. Okay, I'll do that in a moment here. What I'm talking about is the ends of the bracers should have some sort of lighting going on. And hopefully the stream is still running. My tablet just crashed on me again. Let's bring up twitch.tv app. Alright, so bracer lighting. This area is going to be a little bit darker. So let's go back to our brush. Let's see, what color did I choose right here? Let's go ahead with a hardness 50 brush, and I'm going to run it right along there. And there we go, just like that. I kind of add a bit of an illusion there. There's more 3D effect going on. I am going to just keep it like that, so you won't be able to see the other side of the bracer, which is perfectly fine. Still running. Alright. Let's draw some cool designs on this part of the bracer right here. Let's call it bracer circuitry. So I'm creating a new layer. And like I said, this bracer that he's wearing is his shield. So I'm giving it just kind of a weird little electrical look to it, as if it's got some sort of power circuits running through it that are powering the shield, or I don't know, I'm making this up as I go, to be honest with you. But you know, it's all just part of the sci-fi design process that I'm doing. Undo those last two things. And notice when I'm going over this edge piece here, I'm drawing the lines as they go down on an angle, because that's what would happen, right? From the perspective you're looking at right now. There we go. Just giving some weird electronic look to it. And let's make it a little bit brighter, reduce the size a bit more. I'm just going to highlight some of these to add more variety to this section, or to this design. Whoops. and then lights. So we're gonna add some lights to the along here that also contribute to the whole weird, crazy energy shield thing going on, because I'm making, you know, it's science fiction. So to do a light effect, let's start with a larger brush. I'm going to start with about a 10 pixel brush. And a little bit of a darker blue. I'm just going to run along and put some of these circles in place as if they were lights. And then we're going to take the same color, but we're going to up the value to about 90. Let's drop the size down of the brush down in half and do the exact same thing. Put it on top of them. And it's going to make the insides of the lights even brighter than the outsides. This is all part of selling the glow effect. This is one of those more things that goes into how does your brain process an image, and how it processes a glow effect is that the inside of the glow is much brighter than the outside of the glow. So that's why now I'm going to go up the value to about 94. We're going to drop the pixel size down to 3 pixels, and let's go in here, and I'm just kind of tapping in the very center of these lights a few times to get a very small bright core. And there we go. So we got the effect of some glowing lights. And I kind of want to do the shield right now, but I really shouldn't. So I'm going to pass on doing the shield at the moment. And I'm just going to finish up here today by working on his armored feet pieces that are down here. Which are basically like the same material, but he's got them wearing on his feet like they're like part of his shoes, pretty much. So we can go all the way back down here. We can make it part of the vest base color, because it's just got to be above his legs, which are actually way at the top here. Strange. Okay, we're going to create a new layer. And we're going to call it feet plating. Sure, that works. And let's drop back to our bracer base color layer, and let's choose, you know, what is the actual base color approximately. It's that grayish blue color we've been working with this whole time. Let's go to feet plating. Now we get to finally draw the final proper shape of his feet, which is like, well, fantastic. One of the hardest things for me, and I think just in general, is getting lateral symmetry, which basically means that the left side of something, like the left arm, left foot, whatever, is the same shape and size as the right something in a piece of artwork. And making it even more trickier is the fact that, in this case, the feet are different poses, right? So you're seeing each foot at a little bit different perspective. So just that alone is going to make them be a different shape. So it really requires some pretty hardcore knowledge of anatomy to really get this right. So as long as I get it close enough, I'm personally happy. Is that close enough for me? That's close enough for my taste, for my preferences. It looks good enough. So let's go ahead and start adding some more shading to those. We can get rid of our sketch. There we go. It's proven to be just a little bit on the distracting side of things. I really need to make that arm, that hand stand out. That hand did not stand out very well. Well, that'll be for another day. Okay. Let me just clean up the shape of these a little bit. That looks alright. Ugh. There's some rough edges in this foot. It is something that takes a lot of practice here. Is just trying to get nice, smooth edges. And this is where having some sort of stylus, whether it's where I'm on like a Surface Pro or a Cintiq or any sort of Wacom tablet, really is better than having a mouse. You can do this with a mouse, but frankly that's very masochistic. Is that the right word? Basically literally basically inflicting pain on yourself, because it's just that difficult to do that you really just don't want to do it. Alright, now let's go ahead and start adding some shading. Same deal, we're going to go ahead and call it feet shading, add a new layer. So this is pretty much what we've been doing all afternoon here. Changing it to a hard light layer, get a 50 value gray background, and in the areas that are facing the light, we're going to make brighter with a hardness 50. Let's choose a value of like 58. And then we can choose a value of like 60 something. Reduce the size of the brush and then go with the corner there. What you do is you take now I'm going to use the eyedropper, select kind of the border between those two colors because there's a little bit of a hard edge there. And we can take now the airbrush and just go straight down, and that'll kind of blend it all together a little bit better. So, same thing over here. Let's take a 42 color paintbrush, a 42 value. Let's do a 50 pixel wide brush. Let's trace along the dark side there. Let's cut that in half around about 28 pixel wide brush. Let's go down to a 39 color and trace it along again. And then you can use the eyedropper tool where you can visibly see the boundary between those two colors. click there and take the airbrush and just fill it in. And that's going to give you a little bit of a rounded shape going. Let's do the same thing over here with the other foot. Let's do a 40 color, 57 brush, just like that with the sound effects and all. All right, let's reduce that in size down to about half. 27 pixel brush, 38. We'll do a 36 color. Go in there. Find your boundary layer with the eyedropper tool. Select it, airbrush it over, and that more or less smooths it out. And in the other side that's closer to the light, let's start with, too much. 59 color, 59 value. I keep saying color under what I mean value. 57 pixel brush, there we go. Down to about half size, increase the value to around 64. Highlight there, same thing. Eyedropper in the middle, airbrush over. And that's good enough for now. And you're gonna just get the visual effects of just some basic circular shape going on there, like his feet have a bit of or his boots or whatever these things are have a bit of a circular shape to them. And I do want to give them a little bit of an armor plating look. So now what we have to do, because we've got a whole variety of gradients, what we're gonna do is use the airbrush tool. Let's do a hardness 50 brush and go really small. And we're going to actually choose a very, very dark color. Right around 20. And under the airbrush mode right here, you can see I'm circling it, we want to change to subtract. And what I'm going to do is now draw a line that approximately matches the curve of the foot, and it's going to make it a darker line along that point. And we're going to do the same thing over here on this foot, which is a little bit different angle. So it's something kind of like that. I don't like that one. Edit, undo. You always use edit, undo to go back. And there we go. So we've got a little bit of a dark line. That's kind of the dark area of the riveting area, the dark area between the two plates of his boot. And I'm going to go back over here to the mode of the airbrush and choose addition and draw the line just below this one. And as you remember from, if you watched the last time, when I talked about how the human brain perceives texture, the dark line next to a bright line, such that the dark line is closer to the source of the light, will be interpreted as a valley. There you go, zoom out. And you should now see those little rivet things as a valley, as if there was some sort of armor plate there. And we're going to do the same process to give something that runs down the middle. Remember, the dark line is going to face the light source, would be closer to the light source than the bright line would, and that's how your brain's going to know that you're looking at a valley. So let's change it to subtract, and we're going to trace the right next to the bright lines we just created. And there we go. And let's add some texture to the base color of the feet, and we can kind of call that part done for now. Just a quick little, nothing terribly fancy here, honestly. This is like, when you get to do the same thing over and over again, it does get a little bit repetitive. So let's just add some texture, and like I said, we'll just call it done. I'm not too worried about the feet, to be honest with you. How often do you look at one man's feet anyway? We all know that famous quote. Whoops. Make sure you, when I start adding this texture here, you change it back the mode to normal. You're not supposed to turn off tablet. Oh, you rebooted again. Fantastic. There we go, just some more texture to his feet. We're going to do a similar shading effect to the rest of the body to give it the oval, more rounded appearance, but that's definitely going to come later. Alright. So that gives you a pretty good idea of a lot of the techniques you would use to create this type of armor, which is like has a lot of multi-angles or maybe rounded a little bit, and show you how you can apply some of the textures to help define that my live stream feedback up. Thank you. That's what happens when you run a hacked HTTP touchpad. That thing crashes all the time. It actually doesn't. It's actually fairly stable, but for whatever reason right now it's crashing a lot. Okay, so that's just going to show you a lot of different techniques to actually go ahead and make this type of armor. And depending on what type of character you're making, you can use all these techniques combined to create the different looks to his armor. What I want to do now is start working on his helmet. So let's bring the sketch back up. He's kind of looking down a little bit. So let's go to the very top up here, and we're going to create a new layer, and let's call it helmet. And let's see here. Let's go to my reference image. The helmet, Krylan helmets are gray with more or less a bluish face mask, but I'm going to make him a little bit different. He's going to have a basic gray helmet to it, but I'm going to give him actually a bit of a yellowish, blackish yellowish face mask to make it just a little bit different. Because the Krylan do customize their equipment quite a bit, so the fact that they don't all look the same, that just kind of makes sense with their story. So let's use a dark bluish gray color. And then we're going to have hardness 75 brush. Sure, let's do that. Now we'll do the hardness 100 brush. And I'm pretty much just tracing out the shape of the helmet as I sketched it. Now, Krylan helmets are not necessarily symmetrical. They often have little sensors attached to one side or something that makes them a little bit distinctive, even from among helmet to helmet. And actually, that's how you often will distinguish different Krylan apart, is based on their helmet configuration, because the fact they're always locked in these survival suits for pretty much their entire lives when they're on pretty much anywhere that's not their homeworld. Or some of their buildings of starships, they don't need them, but that's more details. So I am going to start at this point with, let's just duplicate the helmet pretty much like that. Edit copy, select invert. I'm going to erase everything else. So I start with a symmetrical base of the helmet, and I can kind of build out from there. So edit, paste, layer, transform, flip horizontally. Where did it go? There, it's hiding down there. Okay, so that's the base outline of the helmet from this odd angle we're looking at here. But then Alendar, who's the name of this character, does have, like I said, some of those weird sensor suites over here. So we're going to give him, one side is going to be a little bit more of an awkward shape. And we're going to define that with some light and dark shadows. Which, I don't know, I might get to today. We'll see. Okay, now we want to, let's hide the sketch. I'm going to fill in his face mask here. So we're going to create a new layer. Whoops. New layer, and let's call it face mask. So I'm going with a very dark yellow color. And let's start defining its shape. I gotta fix that. Wait a minute, I'm gonna jump back to my helmet layer. We're gonna fix his weird crevice he's got in his head. That's a kind of an artifact of how I copy and pasted his two halves of the helmet together. So that looks bad. That looks better. And I think also with the face mask, I'm going to do the same kind of copy and pasting here in a minute, but let me just define out the first half of the basic shape. Whoops. All right. That's about the right basic shape I'm going for. I'll go back and make this a little bit bigger again. And one of the other challenges about doing this type of artwork, there we go, my head's here. Let me move this down a little bit. When I've got my head buried down here, you can actually see my face. You kind of have to trust in the end result, because obviously right now you're looking at a few blobs of color and you're like, what is this? You just have to trust that the techniques you're going to apply at the end, that you're going to apply from now to the end, are going to produce the results you want to produce. So I'm just copying this half of the face mask. Let's do edit, undo, paste. Let's do select, invert, delete everything, erase everything else. By doing select invert, I'm basically selecting everything that's not what I just selected, and therefore I can then use the erase tool to erase everything else. And then go back, select invert again, so I'm back to my original selection, edit copy, edit paste, layer, transform, flip horizontally, and then I can just move it to where it needs to be. Now we can kind of sit back and decide if that's proportionally the size we want. And that looks a little bit too big to me for his head. Compared to our reference image, yeah, his head's a little bit too big. So let's fix that first. That's all that's kind of important to do. Get your proportions down right, and then you can go ahead and start working on details. I'm going to clean up the little rough edges as well. So let me start by cleaning up the shape of the face mask just a little bit. Let's go ahead. We're going to anchor we're going to merge the face mask layer down to the helmet. Which will then put on one layer, and I can now scale it down to the right size before I continue. Yeah, I like that size. They kind of have small heads. They're weird alien critters, right? It's science fiction. That's my always my justification when something seems strange. It's science fiction. Deal with it. So I'm just kind of cleaning up the boundary of the head of the helmet a little bit. Too much. So with that, we're about 620 right now. Alright, I'll go ahead and do some lighting effects so you can actually see that it looks more like a helmet than just a blob of colors, because it really looks like a weird mishmash of garbage right now. So let's fix that. After I get very, whoops, removing a little too much color right there. Okay, so let's start applying some basic light and shadow to it. So, new layer. Helmet lighting. Same thing as usual, turn the helmet lighting layer into a hard light layer. Take your value of 50 and put it down and fill the entire layer with it. Alright, so we've got a little bit, so I'm going to start drawing some selection areas here. Yeah. So why don't I go ahead and create one of those face masks like I did before. So let's call it helmet faces. Just because there's some mixture of curved faces as well as angled faces, and that kind of is going to make this process a little bit on the tricky side. So once again, this is what I did when I started working on the vest. I started doing these really goofy multicolor face things, just so that I can clearly identify where the various angles are as things go along. So right now, what I'm defining is that the helmet, or the face mask area of the helmet, doesn't come up to the very top rim of the actual helmet on Krylan helmets. I'll show you that in just a moment here. So this blue area represents kind of that area where between, like, I guess what do you want to call it? Like this area that kind of faces in the same direction that the Krylan is looking. And now let's choose a green color. This is going to be the very top of the helmet. And let's do something like this. That goes to there. And that's going to go to there. Whoops. So let me actually jump back over to our reference image so you know what you're looking at here. What you can see here is here's his face mask, and you can see that it doesn't quite reach the top of the helmet, and that's what I was drawing there with the blue region. And then we're going to have yellow regions on either side, which these represent, they're just like the sides of the helmet. something done really small here, because we need to fill in this part of the face mask. I'm going to be using a 1 pixel brush to fill in this area of the face mask, or this area of the die that identifies the various faces of the helmet. Alright. Same thing over here then. 1 pixel brush to really get in detail to define where the various where the dividing lines between the pieces of the helmet are, the face of the helmet. And then what we do is we have a sensor area right here. So let's take a 4th color and kind of draw out the shape of that sensor area. There's actually 2 pieces to it. I'm going to fill in this little corner with this super tiny brush before it goes something a little bit larger. Whoops. Fill it in, don't erase it. Alright, so. And also as you do this, the other advantage here is you're going to start to kind of see the shape of the helmet and see if the perspective and the angles and the armor plates are kind of lining up as you would imagine they would, without having to worry about going through adding the lighting and stuff like that later. Alright, let's fill in the rest of this red area here. And then finally, to finish off tonight, I'm going to make one final adjustment to the helmet base color. It's going to be what I thought would be kind of the visible side of the sensor area. I'm going to actually reduce that in size, and we'll fix that later. So it's not going to be quite as visible, which means we're going to have to adjust this a little bit, but that's alright. So you're starting to see the basic shape of the various faces that make up the Krylan helmet. And with that, I am pretty much all done here for tonight. 6:30. I've been doing this for now close to a little over 2 hours. So thank you for watching. Once again, I'm Jason, the creator of the Kalidasia universe, Legends of Kalidasia, which is a space combat miniatures game, as well as Kalidasia Fleet Commander, which is a board game. And once again, this character here is named Alendar. He's a Krylan from an upcoming short story that's going to be based in the Legends of Kalidasia Albion campaign storyline. So if you want more information on the Kalidasia universe, you can head over to the website at kalidasia.com. The URL's currently on the screen about 2 places right now. And I will be back continuing this artwork live here using the GIMP, show you how I do different things. And if you have any questions, always feel free to email me. Or yeah, you can email me. Go over to kalidasia.com, look on the contact us or about us tab, one of those 2. I'll tell you. I should know this. Yeah, if you go to kalidasia.com and choose contact from the menu in the upper right hand corner there, you will find an email address for where you can contact me at if you have any questions or such and such. And of course, always follow me here on twitch.tv to get the latest notifications about when I am streaming, because frankly I don't have a very regular schedule. So with that, thank you for watching and have a good night.